5:30, so we'll call to order this meeting for Monday, December 20th. Karl, would you start us off with the roll call, please?
Councilmember Ronayne.
Present.
Remley.
Present.
Lunsman.
Present.
Reif. Johnson.
Present.
Reinbold.
Present.
Langer.
Present.
Rux.
Present.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Present. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. First order of business will be to approve this week's agenda. I'm not aware of any changes, so I would take a motion to approve as printed.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilman Reinbold. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. The motion does carry. Next, we've got the approval of last meeting's minutes, which took place on December 6th as presented in this packet. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Moved.
Second.
A motion from Councilman Johnson, a second from Councilman Remley. Are there any adjustments that anyone's aware? Otherwise, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Motion does carry. No one has signed up for the open forum, so we'll move along to the three items in our consent calendar. We've got some hearing dates to be set, a license to be issued, and some lottery notices to place on file. Can I get a motion to approve those consent calendar items?
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Remley and a second from Councilman Lunsman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Motion does carry. We'll move along to our old business section of this meeting where we will discuss possible rescission of the earlier decision, and number 2, possible approval of the amended resolution for 21-1102R, which would create the tax increment financing district number 35 called Dakota Estates, Inc. And Joe, why don't you start us off with that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At the last meeting, this was something that was voted down, but there was a lot of council comments and some suggestions and a little encouragement to the developer to take a look at this and come back, and that's exactly what they did. We commend the developer for that. They immediately reached out to staff and worked on an alternative proposal. That proposal would be that the TIF amount be reduced to just the infrastructure cost. That was the $833,267 plus interest. No additional cost, but that the agreement would be amended to allow them to determine if they wanted to keep the discretionary formula, which was the tax abatement on commercial property. The agreement would give the option. They're wanting to take that option. So that would add a little bit more interest, but otherwise it'd still be the same TIF, but payable in 12 years, a much smaller time frame than the first one proposed. So again, looking at that, looking at some things we've done in the past, we think that's consistent, and we feel addresses the council comments. So that's the proposal, but Ron will discuss some of the legal implications that would need to occur here.
Thank you, Joe. I want the council to understand that the reason that we're doing this a little differently is because we did have a prior action of the council last meeting formally denying the motion to approve this resolution. So in order to take this up again, we would have to do so by a motion to rescind. And for those of you who read carefully the agenda packet, Rule 8F of the Rules of Order allow a motion to rescind a prior action of the council at a prior meeting if the presiding officer first determines that the motion is not prevented by law and that the previous decision has not been substantially relied upon. And I can inform the council that neither of those would prevent you from taking this up as a motion to rescind. And if the council then were to move initially to rescind the prior action, at that point you would put the motion back on the table, and the motion was by Ronayne, seconded by Remley, to approve the first reading and passage of Resolution 21-11-02R. And if that's the case, then at that point we would request that if the motion to rescind is successful and the matter is taken up again, then staff would recommend that resolution be amended consistent with the red line changes that were part of the agenda packet. And significantly, those changes simply changed the date of creation to December 20th, reduced the project costs from 1.55 million to 833,267. Allow for a 20-year hold period, same as the term of the TIF. And then lastly, allows the developer may waive the discretionary formula, but is not required to waive the discretionary formula. So again, I want to remind the council this is two parts. One is to rescind. The second part would be to take up the resolution and then ask for amendments to that resolution.
I move to rescind.
Second.
First of all, thank you, Ron, for the lengthy description on that. And we have a motion to rescind the prior discussion and vote by Councilman Remley and a second one by Councilwoman Langer on that. And so I guess before we move anyone, does anyone have anything to add before we take the vote to rescind? All right, Karl, would you give us a roll call vote on that decision to rescind the previous vote?
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. We now have the vote open, and upon the recommendation of the city and our prevailing council, I guess I would take a motion to make the amendment to make it consistent with the updated redline version. Someone care to make that amendment?
So moved. Second.
The motion from Councilman Brux and a second from Councilman Johnson. Any discussion on that before we take a vote? Go ahead, Councilwoman Langer. What have you got?
I have just been thinking about this failed TIF a lot in the last 2 weeks because we had a lot of discussion over it and there was a lot said. And I just can't get over the message that I feel like we sent as a council, being split on it and by opposing it and the discussion that we had. And it feels to me like by talking about setting a precedence, I feel like we set one just in that, is that we aren't necessarily open to new ideas or different ways of doing things. And it makes me feel like, are we telling these businesses and these entrepreneurs and developers that we just follow the same standard all the time? And if that's the case, why are we doing that? I just wish and wonder why we can't treat each project differently. Like, why are we in a box as a council? Don't we grow by thinking big? I feel like that's our job as the council. Everybody said, oh, if we do this, then everybody's going to come to us with these crazy ideas. I want that. I want crazy ideas. I want big ideas. And I want everybody to know that the city of Aberdeen is open for business and for big ideas. I called around to lots of community members and asked questions about this because I just wanted to know if I was alone in this thought process, because that's okay if I am. I have crazy ideas. I get it. But it was discouraging for me because I did hear that this is how we always do it. This is how it is. And what killed me a little bit is they said, well, you can say what you want to say, but what are you going to do about it? What's your next step? And I don't know the answer to that. And that bothered me because they basically told me this is how it is and it's not going to change and there's nothing you can do. And so I hope we move this forward. I hope we can support this. I'm thankful that this situation is going to work out for us, hopefully, because what if that developer walked away? And what if that makes future developers walk away because it took 3 times for us to do this? So I guess I'm going to support this, and I want to ask, how can we find a way to break that stigma? How can we change that perception of this is how we always do things, because we've set that, and I hope that we can work together. And the last thing I want to say is I am really bothered because there were comments I've heard several times about local builders versus out-of-town builders. And on that standard, then I'm an outsider too. And I like to think of myself as somebody who's very, very proud to live in Aberdeen, own a business in Aberdeen. And I'm so thankful that I get to sit up here among you guys. And I always encourage people to bring their ideas to Aberdeen and their businesses. And I welcome outsiders. I welcome insiders. I don't care who you are. Let's make big ideas happen. So I hope we can move that forward. And I hope I open conversation with the other council members at a later date to figure out how we can make big ideas happen.
Sounds good. Clint, what have you got?
You know, and I think if this passes tonight, we are setting a new precedent from what we've done before we haven't done these types of things. But at the same point, this is a compromise. This is something that came about after the discussion, and I want to thank Mayor Schoeneman for continuing to work on this, and the developer for coming back forward, and for the administration working on this. But this would be a new precedent where we allow them to waive the discretionary formula, whereas before we were rigid on that. But we also realize we need residential housing. We also realize that we need good roads in this neighborhood to make sure that the people who live there aren't distressed enough by adding this development. So I think tonight we are setting new precedent, and we are moving forward, and we are making a change. It just took us an extra couple of weeks to do that and find something that everyone can agree on. That's how government works, and I think that this will be a good compromise. And I'm going to support this because I think this is a good compromise.
Thanks, Clint. See no one else to speak here. Karl, why don't you give us a vote on the amendment itself?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. And then, so we'll move forward with the final part of this will be to take, we had a motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Remley in the first place to approve the TIF itself. And I was wondering, does anyone else have anything to add before we take that final vote? Well, Nathan, I do want to express my appreciation for you coming back and then working through the details on this and getting it to a place that we can all agree on. I appreciate that. We look forward to seeing the project materialize here in Aberdeen. And like Clint said, I think it was probably a pretty good compromise in the grand scheme of things. We have a lot of developers that have done it the previous way that we're going to feel a little bit cheated if we gave you too much reins with it. But I think that we can explain this away pretty well in a way that will make people happy and not feel cheated like from the previous times that we've issued TIFs in a much narrower spectrum, and hopefully we'll get those development projects as we move forward. So with that, Karl, why don't you give us a vote on the TIF itself?
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Thank you all very much, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming in here tonight.
Thank you.
Going to our new business portion of this meeting where we have the public hearing on the Aberdeen wastewater improvement project, as well as possible approval of the resolution 21-1204R and the proposed financing for the project. And here to tell us about that is City Manager Joe Gaa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Kind of as a little background reminder as we go into this, prior to an October 1st deadline to get projects on the list for water and wastewater projects for possible state funding in the future, which is the first step, we submitted 3 projects as a city. One was improvements at the water plant. The second one was a water pipeline from the Missouri River. And then the third one was renovations to our wastewater plant. All 3 of those were submitted. The first application deadline, once those were accepted, and they were all accepted, is January 1st. At this point in time, we have one of those projects ready, the wastewater improvements. As a council, you heard the update on that from our engineers a couple of weeks ago. So we have that ready to go. One thing I just want to put in here just to add is we're required to talk about the rates and those sort of things before we put this in, because it's always SRF loan and getting that guarantee. This year will be a little bit different. You'll hear about those numbers, but remember the state has a substantial amount of ARPA funds. They're trying to figure out how to match projects that might be approved. I think we've got a solid ask on that. If the city opts to put their ARPA funds into this, which we will recommend at a later date, that would also decrease the amount of the loan. So the application's actually being submitted by the Northeast Council of Governments on our behalf, and Ted Dickey's here to make sure we dot all the I's and cross all the T's on the compliance. So Ted, what have I missed?
I just need to cover a few bases. on this tonight. We have application in front of the city tonight in the amount of $56,323,000 from the city of Aberdeen applying to the Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. With that, I do have to go through and give you a worst case scenario tonight, and that is if we apply for this funding and the state gives it all in loan, which we don't think is going to happen, but I still have to provide that worst case scenario. So start out saying that. So with that, everybody should have a sheet in front of them that talks about a little bit about rates. In visiting with the city on this, there's currently 8,460 users that are domestic households on the system, on the wastewater system. There's also business users of 923. The current rate per 5,000 gallons, and that's what the state uses as an average use per household, is $27.50. That's what everybody gets billed if they use 5,000 gallons of water in the city. And if you add those numbers across there, if you take the 8,460 times 2750, the total domestic usage would be $232,650. If you take that per month, and if you take that times 12, that should generate $2,791,800. And if you do the same thing for business, that should generate $304,590 for a total of $3,096,390. That's in a perfect world if everybody used 5,000 and everybody paid on time. Karl, does that happen? What was it? 2020 numbers were roughly 4.2 million that was generated through wastewater fees. So it's just a guesstimate is what you should be. The next set of line then talks about, the next set of rows talks about applying to the Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. The loan amount is $56,323,000. The rate that we're applying for is 2.125% at a term of 30 years. The monthly payback on that note would be $211,719.06. The yearly payment would be $2,540,628.72. And then there's that little section over on the right there that talks about 110% debt capacity. The state requires you, in order to keep their bond rating where it's at, to generate or an additional 10% up and above what the loan repayment amount is. So the 110% debt capacity amount for the city of Aberdeen is $2,794,691.59. And that's the magic number we need to get to in generating funding. So the last set of rows then talks about amount that need to increase. The first dollar there just shows that for every dollar the city puts onto the wastewater system, it should generate $112,596 per year. So the next column there talks about proposed increase of $24.85. If the city were to put that in place and everybody pays that amount on a monthly basis, that should generate $2,798,011, and that is above the 110% debt capacity number. If you add that, then the $24.85 onto the current rates of $27.50, the total rate we're proposing, or where we're proposing the rates would go to, is $52.35. Again, this has to be shown as a worst case scenario so that if it comes back and they give you a loan, this is where your rates would need to go to. That's not going to happen. The state will be having meetings on this March 25th in Pier, and that's when a decision will be made, and then we'll have better information as far as where your rates will be needing to go to after that meeting.
Thank you very much, Ted. It seems like that was a pretty thorough analysis of this this data that you provided. Does anyone in the council have any questions for Ted on this? Where do you expect that we'll probably fall in the terms of what we could expect to be grant funded versus funded in terms of loan.
I understand my pay grade, and it's well below that decision-making, process. I can't give you a good answer on that. They have some guidelines set up of things that they'd like to follow to, distribute the $600 million that's available in ARPA funds. The guidelines still need to go through state legislature, so it's too early to even try to guesstimate where they're going to do this.
Somewhere in between point A and point B, though.
Yes.
Joe?
No, Ted, thanks. That was a good job. I would just say that everything we're seeing out of the state, again, this has to be approved, would be to expect, I would say, expect about 30% in grant minimum. Again, there's some things we can do to help ourselves on that. That's new. That's something that hasn't happened before. Normally, we're applying for 100% loan, so this is good news. We're also looking at other funding sources and some things to do to add to the incentives to that, but we'll keep working that while they're working on their final guidelines, and I think we'll be in pretty good shape.
Sounds good. Any questions from the council? Well, then I would take a motion to approve this resolution.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilman Remley. It looks like we had plenty of opportunity to input questions or comments. I guess I'm going to have Karl give us a roll call on that resolution, please.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Ted, thanks for joining us here tonight.
Thank you.
Next, we've got the possible first reading of ordinance 1202, which adjusts the council district boundary descriptions following the adoption for redistricting plan. And here to tell us about that is our city's attorney, Ron Wager. Ron, what have you got?
Thank you, Mayor. Section 1838 of the Aberdeen City Ordinances describes in meets and bounds the current council district boundaries. We need to, as a result of the approval and adoption of the final redistricting plan, the council needs to adjust those boundaries to reflect that plan, and this ordinance just does that, and would recommend approval.
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilman Reinbold. Has anyone got any questions about that? We had a nice little presentation just a couple of weeks ago on the topic, and I thought they'd done a very thorough job. Karl, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the designation of representatives of the council districts following that redistricting process. And Ron will explain that to us next.
Thank you again. By state law, once redistricting is done, the council needs to designate those representatives on its body who will represent the various districts. And this motion would propose to keep everybody in their same districts, and we would ask that the council approve this motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilman Remley to approve the redistricting districts and the representatives in this council. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this? All right, Karl, give me a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the possible first reading of ordinance 21-1203, which supplements the 2021 budget for various unanticipated projects, activities, and expenses. And Karl Alberts, our city finance director, will tell us all about that.
Thank you, Mayor. You'll see in front of you, I put out an updated version of the ordinance. I had neglected to include a supplement that I had talked to the park superintendent, Mark Hoven, earlier this year. During the course of the original budget for 2021, there was about $18,000 of operation and maintenance budget that was not included in the original budget. So this adjustment would add $18,000 into that ARC budget, which is Washington Street Gym and the Aberdeen Recreation Center. Otherwise, most of the supplements have an explanation beside them, and the staff recommends approval, please.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Remley and a second from Councilman Rux. Does anyone have any questions on any of those transfers? All right, very well laid out here for us, Karl. Appreciate that. Why don't you give us a roll call vote on that first reading?
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the possible first reading of ordinance 21-1204, which supplements the 2021 budget for various park, rec, and forestry activities. Karl?
Thank you, Mayor. This again is the fourth adjustment for the Parks and Recreation allocation of funds between the gift fund, their 208 general fund, and the 508 and 506 capital project funds for their general capital projects, and then for the softball complex project fund. Money gets entered into each of those funds, but the projects are done in the funds where they're supposed to be done and the funds that benefit. So this is to move the money to where, in the budget, to where the projects actually occur. And this would be the fourth and final for this year.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Remley and a second from Councilman Reinbold. Any questions? Thanks for the explanation. Karl, why don't you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the possible first reading and passage of a resolution 21-1201R, which is the intent to lease city-owned land at the airport to fixed base operators for a 20-year period beginning in 2022. And I would like to make mention, as it was asked of me, to that we will have one abstention, which would be Councilman Reinbold on the vote on this issue. And with that, I will kick it over to Rich. What have you got for these? Or do you want to lead us off, Ron?
I'll help out here. So what the council has before it is the resolution of intent to lease city-owned lands. We've done this before on numerous other things. There's this two-step process. The first is the resolution of intent, and then as part of that is a notice of publication, and then that gets published in the newspaper, and then we follow it up with a resolution to approve. And we have the two of our FBOs at the airport, Aberdeen Flying Service and Quest Aviation, whose 20-year leases are expiring, and what we've negotiated with them is our new 20-year leases, and we've identified the square footage amounts and the annual rental values there. Difference will be that the rentals are increasing a little bit, and they'll adjust thereafter by an automatic percentage of 2%. And lastly, the airport board did recommend unanimously approval of these leases.
Thanks. Anything to add on that, Mr. Krokel, while you're up there?
Ron did a fine job.
Okay.
Move to approve the resolution.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilman Rux. Anyone have anything to add? Then, Karl, why don't you give us a roll call vote on that reading then, please?
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the possible approval of payment requests for city work on the airport improvement projects, as well as to authorize our city manager to sign those requests. There's 6 in total. Payment number 7 is for taxiway geometry to Sharp for $116,994. Payment 4SA for taxiway geometry to the same company is for the amount of $29,954. Payment 25 for taxiway geometry to Helms and Associates for the amount of $11,455, and payment number 3 for the apron project to Helms for $8,839. Payment number 11 is for the taxiway geometry to Helms for $8,830. And finally, payment number 33 will cover taxiway C project to Helms for the total amount of $664. And Rich, why don't you tell us about those?
Okay, do you want me to go line by line or kind of group them together?
Just, group together
So-
the like ones, I would
Okay,
say.
yeah, the ones for Sharp Enterprises are for
labor and materials to date used in the project. Helms and Associates is for, on the geometry is for design and resident engineering and log keeping. GA Apron is design work. Taxiway geometry is again design work, or resident engineering on-site supervision, and the payment 33 line item 6 is for Helms to start the closeout process of this. We're basically done with that project now, so we can finalize that paperwork and get it sent to the FAA for closeout.
I'll move to approve all 6 payments.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilman Lunsman to make those 6 payments. Did we have any questions for Mr. Krokel? All right. Karl, would you give us a roll call vote on those payments?
Thank you.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got our review and approval of claims and payroll. We've got the bills for this week, December 20th, and we've got the payroll for December 5th through the 18th, as well as all the taxes that go hand in hand with employing people. Can I get a motion to make all those payments, please?
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Reinbold and a second from Councilman Remley. Any questions? Karl, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Ronayne, Councilmember Ronayne,
I'm sorry, abstain, I apologize. I'll learn how to
Remley?
use my computer next month.
Okay. Remley,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got our city manager's report in here to tell us all about the good news is Joe Gaa.
We do have one remaining council meeting left this year, December 27th, so we do have one, just to remind you. But the good news is that it is the holiday season upon us, so both Christmas and New Year's Day holidays fall on Saturdays, so they'll be observed on Friday. So city offices will be closed Friday, December 24th and December 31st. But for those of you whose garbage is usually picked up on Friday, no fears. Just put it out on Thursday and you'll be fine. So garbage will be one day early on both of those Thursdays. But the best news I have is the council member has some friends out at Glacial Lakes Energy who sent you some treats. You'll see sitting on the table they would like you to share, take part in before you leave. So that's the best news when you have friends that send you treats. But that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councilman Rux.
Robin, I see they're out working on the lights on Lawson and Melgard.
Yes, they should have all the poles up today. There's a little bit of programming that needs to be done on the controller, and so the consultant from the Twin Cities will be coming in on January 6th. So we should have everything operational on the 7th. As people could tell today, that system in Flash was a nightmare if you had to go through that. So we do not want to put the new system into Flash, which we could do probably as of tomorrow or Thursday. But we're going to leave it, the temporary system operating, and we'll wait until the full programming is done on that system, and then we'll be up and running early January.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Or Clint and Robin. Doing too many things over here. Anyone else have anything before we move to adjourn this meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson, a second from Councilman Rux. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Motion does carry.